Okay, you are live.
Great. Welcome again, everybody. Eric Leshinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning for the City of Annapolis. Been the project manager on our public water access plan, working with a few other city staff and partners. And we're really grateful for you to participate. This is our third focus group for the public water access plan. We kicked off last May after sort of developing the scope. Prior to that, with the Volpe Center, our consultant, and National Park Service, who's funding this effort. So we're going to do some introductions in a moment, but let me go ahead and just frame the project and just give, some of you have already participated in focus groups in the past or have been engaged in this project otherwise. So this may not be news to you, but let me go ahead and share my screen and kind of just give a few slides, 3 slides here. I just want to kind of share what this public water access plan is all about. Particularly for people who are going to watch this later. This is something that we've been talking about for years here in the city, and we've kind of done pieces of it, I would say, but this is sort of pulling a lot of different things together. And ultimately, it's about this quote at the top, prioritizing concrete steps that we can do with partners to improve, enhance, expand water access within and adjacent to the city limits. So we really do want actionable things to come out of this plan. There's a number of exciting water access projects already happening that have been in the works prior to this plan. Robert Eads Park on College Creek, Hawkins Cove, Carr's Beach. City Dock, obviously, is the biggest one. And this is kind of running in parallel to City Dock. So it's not really impacting the City Dock project so much. Maybe the end of Prince George Street will get addressed better through this plan, but it's really focusing on everything else in the city. And these are the 5 big scope items. And you can see this one, number 4, program and partnership initiatives, is something that's really important because we know that there's already a lot of partnership activities going on. We want to be aware of those, understand what they are, be able to articulate, other opportunities that might be on people's minds that we can activate in the future. For the purposes of framing what we mean by public water access, I wanted to share this definition. This comes up a lot, when we give presentations, because it is intentionally broad. A lot of people just assume it to mean you should be able to get in the water. But the way we frame public water access in our code, and this came out of the maritime zoning update that happened in 2021 following the Maritime Task Force. This was one of the big recommendations from the task force, was to better define public water access, particularly as it relates to properties and businesses on the waterfront that may be developing. And now there's a requirement in the code, if a new restaurant opens, they do have to provide this public water access. So it's very broad and open-ended. It has a few specific types of activities, but it's really about just getting to the water, being able to be on the waterfront, on the land side, and in some cases be able to get in the water if that makes sense, if that's possible, feasible. So this example outside the Chop Tank restaurant is an example of that. And then, last slide, just as kind of an overview. This is the map of where our existing water access is today as we understand it. We're learning new things every week, but we've tried to add to this map when we hear of something new, and it's hard to read, but the blue dots are all of the City of Annapolis parks. Orange are public access easements where there might be some allowed water access, but it was negotiated through a property development. It might be a stormwater access easement that's not been sort of formalized as a park. Generally, these don't have great signage. It's a problem. A lot of our parks are kind of lacking signage, but public access easements in particular are going to be hard to find. And so we're trying to identify those and be better about identifying them. We have the purple dots are planned City of Access Park, City of Annapolis parks. We have Cars Beach, Hawkins Cove, Gateway Park on Rail Boulevard, and then Tolson Street is a new street and park that was just created. And then we have privately managed open space. You could think about St. Luke's or the under construction Crab facility, or St. John's College. Obviously City of Annapolis parks and county parks are on here as well. We have another map that covers a more regional area. We're interested in that for this plan, but this is really the focus. And especially for today, all of you who are joining us have some connection to Annapolis and the waterfront. And so just wanted to get us all on the same page. Hope that helps. We can roll in. I'm going to stop sharing, and with that, we can kind of roll into introduction. So let me go ahead. Other people from City of Annapolis who are on, I guess it's Brian. I guess that's it. Go for it.
I'm Brian Callahan. I'm in the mayor's office.
And Casey.
Hi there, I'm Casey Ortiz with Planning and Zoning as a comprehensive planner.
Right, and then our funder partner, National Park Service, Eddie.
Hello, Eddie Gonzalez. I'm Director of Partnerships and Grants for the MPS Chesapeake office based here in Annapolis. Pleasure to be here.
And our moderator for today, I'm going to hand things off to Anthony Jones from Volpe Center.
Yeah, well, thank you, Eric, and it's a pleasure meeting everybody and seeing the few faces that I've seen from the last two. This afternoon, as Eric mentioned, we're going to talk about partnerships and development with investments for the parks and within the city. And to continue on the role of introductions, I'm going to go by who is next to me, which is Jody. And then for introduction, just state your name and your organization, as well as potentially how your organization or your company has partnered with the city so far in water access, and then just kind of briefly describe the initiative to give us a little bit of feedback and take note on that. All right.
Want me to go first?
Jody, that'd be great. And then I got Bridget, and then you, John.
Okay. Who did you want to go first?
Judy.
Judy?
Yeah, Judy.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I'm representing Isaac Vineyard, who's the pastor at College Creek Church, and our neighborhood, the Clay Street community.
Yes. And can you tell me how the church has been actively involved or partnered with the city so far in the water access plan?
Well, unfortunately, Isaac has not filled me in on that yet, but my assumption is that he's been getting people from the community to be aware of this initiative, and also just trying to participate and generally be a networker for the community.
Has there been any other type of projects or initiatives dealing with water access or just the parks in general that y'all been helped out with the city that you know of?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but we're located right now down at Moss Adams Academy,
Mhm.
area. And, they have a lot of waterfront there too. And they've got some signage, in fact, that's dilapidated and needs help. But so, that's another kind of connection we have there with some potential supporters and even landholders.
Okay.
Are you aware of that location?
I am
It-
not.
It's down there at the end, right next to Eads Park. It goes up the cove on the left side as you're standing at the bottom on Clay Street, looking down up the creek.
Mhm.
And so their land goes, pretty far up the edge, I believe.
Okay.
Anthony, it's in the vicinity of, it's right next to Robert Eads Park. So.
Okay.
property. Yeah.
All right, cool. I got that captured. Thank you, Judy, for introducing yourself and then also the church and organization. Next, I have Bridget McClellan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bridget McLaughlin with the Housing Authority, City of Annapolis. I'm Director of Resident Services. Our property is right next to Hawkins Cove. So that is, I guess, my representation here as far as the water access. And we are also partnering with the City of Annapolis with the CNI grant, which is the redevelopment of the Eastport Harbor House community.
All right. Thank you, Bridget. John?
Yeah, hi, my name is John Arison. I'm here representing Annapolis City Marina, which probably started this whole thing a couple of years ago when we tried to amend the WMM zone, successfully amending it. But we've got a promenade next to Carroll's Creek. It's not advertised as being open to the public, but we certainly don't prevent the public from walking across our property to enjoy the water. And then there's also the 5th Street street end where I think the mayor wants to run his electric ferry is right adjacent to our property. And I know that there's some talk about, wanting us to participate in fixing that up a little bit. I mean, we got dumpsters and stuff down there. So I'm here on behalf of Annapolis City Marina.
All right. Good to have you here. Next up. Good. Next I have Alicia or Alice. I'm sorry. Estrada.
Hi, I'm Alice Estrada. I'm the president of the Annapolis Maritime Museum and Park. We have long-term leases with both these properties from the city of Annapolis. The museum since the early 2000s and the park since 2016. Both properties obviously have access to the water, not just viewing it, but they can launch a canoe or kayak from our properties and fish and crab at our museum campus.
Good information to have. Let's see. Thank you. Next I have Craig.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Craig Freeland. I use they, them, theirs, and he, him, his pronouns. I'm a program assistant with the Chesapeake Bay Trust in the outreach and education team. Stepping in today for Jana Davis, our president, because today is actually our board meeting. So I'm here to take notes and hear how the Chesapeake Bay Trust can possibly contribute to the plan, whether that be in a networking capacity or however we may see fit in the future for collaboration and partnerships. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you as well. Next I have Francesca.
Hi, I'm Francesca King. I am the chair of the Recreation Advisory Board for the City of Annapolis. And that board is volunteer of city residents, and we exist to provide recommendations to Park and Recs, Rec and Parks regarding the budget, activities, programs, facilities, and public relations. So far we've been involved with this by helping to get the word out about surveys and just kind of want to be those liaisons between city residents and public water access. I'm also an employee of Watershed Stewards Academy, but my colleague Terrell's here to represent us on that half. So.
All right. Thank you, Francesca. Terrell, I have you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Terrell Acker Carter. I am the Community Engagement Specialist with the Anne Arundel Watershed Stewards Academy. So in terms of partnerships, we are getting our stewards to help spread the word, especially with the feedback forms that went out a couple months ago, and just seeing how we can help our stewards and our network partner in achieving these goals.
Next, I have Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill Borwigan. I live in Eastport. I'm on the board of the Eastport Civic Association, and I'm really excited by all the incredible work that you're all doing. And really thank you all on behalf of the association. We're all about trying to maintain and expand the water access points, and in some cases restore some of the water access points that we've lost in recent years in Eastport.
Next, I have Michael.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Tomasini. I own a maritime business, also in Eastport. My involvement with helping the city with public water access came out of the Maritime Task Force, where I was co-chair of the Water Access Subcommittee. Some of the ideas that were on Eric's slide in the very beginning were ideas that Alice and John and a few others helped to kind of solidify during that process. So happy to see it starting to rubber hit the road, so to speak.
Glad to have you still active. Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jess Packler. I am a resident of Eastport on President Street, and an often user of water access points. Hawkins Cove being the closest one that we can access right now near us, but in general in Eastport, and a supporter and advocate. I'm also heavily involved in the education side. I'm on the Annapolis Education Commission, which is a city board, much like the rec board that Francesca spoke about, and PTAs at Eastport and Annapolis Middle. And, you know, a big supporter of making water accessible in Eastport and Annapolis to all of our residents and to our schools and our students, and everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic or cultural backgrounds.
Thank you. Next I have is Kevin.
Hi, everyone. Kevin Haggis here, CEO and owner of Capital Sup, resident of Eastport. And we're entering our 10th year in season based out of Quiet Waters Park now, and looking to enhance and provide more water access to the local community and the tourist destination that Annapolis is.
Next I have Ms. Ellen Moyer. Ms.
Mute Ellen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm Ellen Moyer. I'm a past mayor of the city sometime back from 2001 to 2010, but I am actually the originator of the street end parks, the first ones that were done between 1960 and 1980. And almost all of the street end parks now in existence basically were done on my initiatives as an alderman serving Eastport. So I have a background in water access past, and and some new visions for improved water access future.
Next I have Jesse.
Hi, my name is Jesse Iliff. I'm the executive director of Severn River Association. We have not had much in the way of formal partnership with the city on the public water access so far, but would like to be a lot more involved because people aren't going to appreciate and respect the rivers if they can't get out to touch and see them. So that's why I'm here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problem. Has there been any past initiatives that you have helped with the city or partnership on that you may know of?
We've partnered with the city on a number of things over the years, but not specifically related to water access, more like restoration projects and other sort of advocacy things.
Well, Back Creek.
Back Creek Conservancy is a legacy organization that merged with Severn River Association back in 2019. And before that, there was partnership with the city in terms of establishing a no discharge zone in Anne Arundel County, all the waters of Anne Arundel County, including the Severn River. I am not sure about anything else that might have happened with Back Creek Conservancy before that time.
Okay. I do appreciate the brief touches on restoration and everything else that kind of gives me some knowledge and background. And then last but certainly not least, I have Rebecca.
Hello. I am Rebecca Brenia, and I am representing the West Annapolis Civic Association today. Deirdre Ralph has attended these meetings previously on behalf of our Civic Association, and she wasn't available today, so I'm stepping in. And our interest as a civic association is to make the best use of the water access that we have in our neighborhood, and to try and turn it into public spaces that can be used by everyone in the city.
Thank you. Let's see. So, kind of start off our questions. Starting with question number 2. I didn't know, Eric, did you have the Jamboard that you would like to pull up, or?
Yeah, let me do that now.
Okay. So in our past workshop meetings, Eric has produced a Jamboard in order to capture our notes and also to, to display actively on the screen as we take note. And so if you say anything, you don't see it captured on the screen, please say it out loud as we go through the questions. But as our first question is that as the city's resources are limited, the water plan strategically kind of seeks out to develop and nurture future partnerships with organizations, potentially like local businesses and other stakeholders. From your perspective, where do you kind of see a need or an opportunity for future partnerships? And then, particularly pertaining to your organization, how do you think you can help facilitate that or, push the initiatives forward? And it's open discussion. So first one, raise their hand or jump forward. We can go from there. Francesca.
Thank you. I'll add really quick I'll speak to this first from Watershed Stewards Academy. So for those who don't know, we're an organization that trains and mobilizes community leaders as volunteer stewards. So one thing that we do, we have about 75-ish stewards in the city of Annapolis. And one thing that they're trained in is grant writing, smaller grants, but like understanding how to get funding for restoration projects and to kind of prevent stormwater runoff and to educate their communities. So they are a pretty good group to mobilize their neighborhoods, communities, and that could be a resource. And then for the Recreation Advisory Board, I think that we could definitely try to liaise with Rec and Parks and try to kind of communicate needs back to constituents in the city as well.
Definitely don't wait on me.
Hello.
I'm going to be typing slowly here.
Yeah. Yes, Ms. Allen, Ms. Moyer.
Yes, I'm going to talk about opportunity because it's a big project that I think encompasses all of College Creek, not just Robert Eads Park. Robert Eads Park is a catalyst, actually, but that whole creek, the ownership along that creek are all either public bodies. There's no private homes. They're all very large. The school board is one, St. Anne's, the United States Naval Academy, Methodist Church, St. John's College, and the city have different ownerships along that creek. And so there are plenty of opportunities as you look forward for a real real master plan, a landscape plan, and a recreation plan that shows how that whole creek can be used both as water access at different points, as well as hiking and or biking trails along its perimeter. It's it is just a magnificent opportunity waiting to happen, waiting to be visualized, and for which there really needs to be a design plan. But the opportunities for partnership, when you look at all the partners, both the county, the school board, the institutions that I mentioned, the opportunity for a partnership terms in planning and funding are just really, really good. So I see this as an opportunity that needs to be planned. Obviously, it's into the future. I've got a lot of other short-term stuff that I could talk about, but I want to put this on the table as a major, major effort.
All right. So definitely taking notes on having College Creek as a full master plan as a whole.
A whole master plan, yeah.
There's definitely opportunities with stakeholders from the city, the county, and then the college.
School board, the colleges, St. Anne's Cemetery or Church, if you will, St. John's College, the United States Naval Academy. Even the state has a portion also of a place that I know is being looked at as kind of a gateway park, but it can't be piecemealed. It needs to be whole, done as a whole. There are also a couple of existing street end parks already along that creek that need major help, major renovation. And one, we've got a long strip down by the housing authority that somehow or other keeps getting ignored as city property, but it is city property that can provide all kinds of access just north of the bridge coming over College Creek.
Okay. As you mentioned, I've been hearing Eric kind of talk about that as being kind of like a gateway area to look at. So, but it's good to understand the stakeholders and the landowners that are in the area too. So I do appreciate you providing this information. Anyone else have any good ideas about potential local businesses, some of the initiatives that y'all would like to see as far as partnering with the city, public-private partnerships, potential changes in policy could be helped out as well, along the creek sheds, the river, understanding the mooring and getting more opportunities along those access routes are some of the things that we're looking at and would like to have your input on as well.
Hi, this is Alice Estrada again from the Annapolis Maritime Museum. And, I would just like to hold us up as a potential model for folks, because this is what we're doing. We took 2 properties that were owned by the city, and I think Ellen Moyer will testify that that park was in pretty bad shape because of the limited resources of the city. And we were able to, as a nonprofit, be a little more nimble. We had some very successful fundraising and doing some improvements to the park. So I just think it's a good model for us. It's a win-win. We were able to expand our education programs, expand our program impacts. We couldn't have afforded to acquire 12 acres on the water. So, and of course, this Eastport campus is so used morning, noon, and night for everything from dog walking to, public and private events to, fishing and crabbing off the pier. So I just want to hold that up as a potential model for those that might want to consider it, other nonprofits or private enterprises that may want to partner with the city on some of these lands to get it done.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Well, just in the short term, the whole water access from Truxton Park has been closed off for a long time. And that is a major or a minor, but it is a capital improvement that the city has got to put in its budget and get fixed down at the, down at the head of Spa Creek. So, the city is a major major property owner with a dock that can't be used, with boats that can't be launched. And that issue has got to be addressed and fixed. You can't, why would you be doing Hawkins Cove? And Hawkins Cove is important. But you pass by the area of the city that is closed to water access at the present time. It's got to be repaired.
And on adding on to what Ellen is saying, Hawkins Cove is a beautiful piece of wild nature where as little development as possible should take place only to improve, the nature that's there versus Truxton Park is already developed. Truxton Park has a boat ramp. Truxton Park has slips that has, there's a lot, and it's a much larger, easier to access area. Hawkins Cove has beavers and herds of deer and foxes and recently a great horned owl. And that's something, we don't, I hope that when we're looking at water access, we're not looking at just developing water access, right? That we're making sure that we're keeping water access for nature as well.
Right.
I definitely agree with that sentiment, and it's good to have that tidbit to know that Hawkins Cove is an area where that restoration and enhancement could happen, and looking to keep that biodiversity there. If there are any other, areas within the city that you know of that you would like to kind of see enhanced with, natural fauna and re-inviting the birds, let me know, because that's some of the things that we've been looking at through the inventory that we did, just assessing how the environmental standards are, what conditions they are in. And so we definitely want to keep nature for us to be able to, utilize and observe properly.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I actually had my hand raised. Well, first of all, back to Hawkins Cove. I don't know if you're aware, but Spa Creek Conservancy just did a massive stream restoration there over the last 4 years. It sort of ended during the middle of COVID. So I don't think it necessarily got as much press, but that has done so much to really improve the fauna and the flora back there and really bring it back to, it was fairly degraded before, but now it really is growing into its own, which is fantastic. And I hope that any plans, that are done are recognizing that it is still coming to what the goals were from that stream restoration, right? Like when St. Luke's was first done, it wasn't necessarily pretty. But now it's this amazing place. And Hawkins Cove is about 2 years behind the St. Luke's project. So I think that's important. I was going to ask if you could show the, so anyway, that's really important, I think, to note, not to look at what it is going to happen because of that stream restoration and where we are so far. I mean, in the last 2 to 3 years, it's improved incredibly. But with the map that you had of the public water access sites, there's a public water access off of Wind Whisperer Lane in the Georgetown Grove community. And I was wondering if that was on there. I didn't notice.
It's not on that map currently, but we have it as an opportunity site. So Jess, you actually shared that with me and we've noted it. It's one of these, we've basically identified these sort of informal sites that community members already use, but are sort of not managed really currently. And so, we kind of put them in honestly, I'm still trying to figure out, I believe it's city owned. It's a stormwater easement, but we haven't really done.
Access easement though. If you look at the plats, it's an access easement and it clearly says, so that was actually my question. So that was one of them, but where else do we have access easements? Because as we're well aware, what happens is we have these access easements that were created in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And, you know, they've been used informally and they're known informally, or in some cases, neighbors have, you know, residents who live near right next to it have tried to block access to those easements, but they're public easements and they're public access. And I think Ellen can probably speak to the whole point of those easements was to make sure that as the city was developing and new neighborhoods were being built, that the people who live in the city didn't lose access to the water. And, you know, so if we have an informal list, I think maybe we should start having a formal list so that people can, you know, start, so that we can, as a group, start looking at them and saying, you know, what can we do to protect these? I mean, that's if you look at the Georgetown Grove plats, there's actually two different accesses. There's the main one that's down, you know, that goes right into the creek, but then there's another one that's off of the little tiny court that's at the end of Wind Whisperer. I know it's sort of hard to
Right.
explain, 'cause it's all a big court.
Right.
But, and also where else in the city, you know, do we have those accesses and how do we make sure we're not losing them?
Right. I would like to just to add to what Jess said, because one, I'd like to know how the Annapolis Conservancy is engaged in this whole process. They, over time, have, you know, contracted or saved several hundred acres of land. But I don't get a sense that they are engaged in this. The city, after all, the Annapolis Conservancy is kind of invisible in a lot of ways, but it is also a public urban land trust. Maybe not recognized by the Land Trust Group, but it is the only one of its kind in the US of A. And so those are just tools that can be used and applied to all the mapping that needs to be done. The rights of way, yes, we did do as Jess identified, there were some rights of way that were set aside for access. One in Wells Cove, which is in court, another one that went into Back Creek. That one, this administration gave away to the property owners. So, you know, so we have points at which people can at least, and at one time, the one that was just given away had a bench down at the end so that people could, or a picnic table so that people could walk down. It was a narrow path. But when a new person bought the property, they just negotiated with the city to give it away. These things are important and need to be mapped. How they're used in the future, you know, that's, you know, yet to be decided, but they do need to be mapped as potential areas of access. And I think the Conservancy, as a public urban land trust, could be a tool that could be used.
I just want to say that we did invite Joanna Ogburn, the Conservancy chair, and we also invited Amy Clements, the president of Spa Creek Conservancy. I guess both had conflicts, but I completely agree with what you're saying, Mayor Moyer, about the Conservancy Board. They're a resource that we don't really use enough, as far as I can tell.
Right.
They also can control much of the land at Hawkins Cove, just for that.
Okay.
Looks like got a few hands up.
And really,
I believe Rebecca's had her hand raised for a while, definitely longer than I have.
okay. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought I was muted there. I just wanted to piggyback on one of the earlier comments about the diversity of different parts of the neighborhood of the water access in the city and how it can be used for different things. In West Annapolis, we have the Tucker Street boat ramp, which is a little bit delayed in being updated, but my understanding is that those capital improvements are going to be made in 2024, and hopefully, you know, that's like a boat ramp and kind of a more developed area. But then we have mapped access points on Tolson, and I think there might be a paper street on Claude as well. That is, you know, totally undeveloped areas that might be a nice resource for more more of a natural type of setting where there's just like maybe a couple benches and things like that, but where people can observe birds and wildlife and things like that. And there's not that development like we're planning to have at Tucker Street.
Okay.
That one is news to me, so that's good to hear. Claude, you said?
I'm not sure exactly what it is at the end of Claude because it's all really overgrown, and I'm not one to like push my way through the trees. But I think that there might be, something on the map back there at the end of Claude and then also at the end of Tolson. Actually, no, wait, Claude is, no, it's not Claude. I apologize. I need to learn my neighborhood streets better. Sorry about that. But along Monterey, where the roads end, there's space in between homes that is, I believe, city owned and just like overgrown and not developed.
It is.
Okay. And we have Craig, Bill, and then Francesca.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that there's definitely a need and an opportunity for collaboration with Indigenous organizations and groups to ensure that when the public access of the water resources improves and increases, that maybe there's signage or educational opportunities that they lead in order to make sure that their story is being told and that their culture and history is also being preserved along with this water.
Okay. And Bill?
Yeah, it's just to piggyback off of what Craig just said. I mean, the signs are so critical, and it's a combination of physical signs at water access points. But I'd like to see a website that somebody can look at their an app on their phone and identify all the different water access points in the city, and then you could even increase the level of information about any kind of history regarding that water access location. So I'm really excited about the city grant application recently to get signs at all these water access points. As Mayor Moyer said, in Chester Avenue at Bill Jones Alley, half of the 20-foot right-of-way was given away. 10 feet of it still exists. Unfortunately, the property owner has planted shrubbery in 5 of the 10 feet, so it's really hard to tell that there's a water access point still there, but there actually is.
It's gone.
There's a little bit left. No, it's on the plat actually, Ellen, but it's really hard because the only part that's left is the part over the drain pipe, so it's a lot harder to access the water. But Eric will tell you that there's a 10-foot right-of-way that still exists, but we lost most of it. The best part of it, I should say. A partnership we're proud of. I'm also a part of the U.S. Lighthouse Society Chesapeake Bay chapter, and we take people out to the Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse. So we actually have a partnership with the Maritime Museum that we're proud of. We launched from there to visit that lighthouse, and we're excited about the National Park Service taking over and getting more involved in trying to improve water access points. So we can't be more appreciative than and we're excited about the Gateway project.
That's a good point. I mean, I feel like Thomas Point is often overlooked, and I'm just maybe exaggerating here, but a lot of people just have not had access to it. And I think that will increase. I became familiar with the Lighthouse Society's stewardship, and it seems like a good model. I know it'll change, I guess, if it becomes part of the recreation area, but
well, again, just to get people out on the water, every person you get on the water that's never been on the water is somebody that's going to support a cleaner bay and is going to support more water access. And so I'm excited about that project. I'm excited about, I think Holly Farms is actually going to eventually end up as part of the Park Service, hopefully. And so these are all opportunities to get more people on the bay, literally get more political support and increase tourism for the city and increase tax dollars. So it's a win-win for everybody when we educate people about where the water access points are and getting more people on the water. I mean, it's really key. It helps everybody. So
Just as just an idea that I'd like to share. This is Ellen again, but each street end park, besides the access signs, offers opportunities for one, a story about the history of that area, the stories that can be told about, about the neighborhood and or the area around it. And they also offer opportunities to, to cooperate or to work with or to collaborate with the arts community, because some of them would be suitable for a variety of different kinds of art. And so just a kind of put on the list as things to be thought of and done, where you can actually begin to engage different organizations, one that can begin to look at, the stories of the area, historical stories of the area, stories that can be told that help infuse a certain kind of pride in the past, as well as working with the Arts Alliance for, that might adopt an area from time to time for artworks. Just passing that idea on.
I appreciate that idea. I've noted that. And I think, let's see, Francesca, Jesse, and then Vincent. See, it just popped on the call and got your hands raised as well. But go ahead, Francesca.
Thank you. To add on and expand a little bit to what Bill just said, I think one time or a multiple time kind of trip out on a boat definitely isn't enough water access. So I think the Recreation Advisory Board would really love to see sustainable and equitable programming, especially for people in the city that don't have access or have been like historically excluded or moved. So that would be a really critical thing to expand upon. And then secondly, I know that this is outside of the city limits, but I think another really important place to find partnership and to preserve is Greenbury Point. And so, yeah, I just would like to raise that.
All right, thank you. Jesse.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, Francesca beat me to my comment. I was going to say the same thing about fostering partnership with naval support activity in Annapolis to facilitate access and use at Greenbury Point. Then also working with the state for Thomas Point, which Eric mentioned. And finally, I'll throw the county in there too, because Amos Garrett right across the river is another nice public area that could be part of a broader network. So, just working with other government partners, I think, will be key. And then also I wanted to make a comment about Carr's Beach. The water quality at Carr's Beach is going to be pretty good most of the time, but it is not suitable for swimming right now because there's some old infrastructure and things that is out in the water and in the area that would make it dangerous for swimmers. So a potential investment could be made in removing some of that obsolete infrastructure and making it swimmable again.
Jesse, what was the other site you mentioned? Was it Jonas Green or a different?
Jonas Green.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I said Amos Garrett, okay. But yeah, Jonas Green is what I meant. The one by the bridge on the other side of the river. Yeah.
All right, Vincent.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So.
Yes, again, thank you for the invite, Eric, and the team to participate in this important conversation. I represent the Blacks of the Chesapeake Foundation, and we have been documenting the contributions of African Americans in the waterways. And during that 30-year period, I've served on the school board. And again, some of our properties that have water access or environmental significance, again, just trying to find ways to integrate that work into the school curriculum. I'm also acting as one of the lead interpreters or one of the stewards of the recently acquired Elktonia Heritage Park, and working with the city and Alice Estrada and Park Service and so many other stakeholders. One the things we do want to have is a very robust, public engagement process as we look at the interpretation of that site. I concur with the points that the earlier gentleman made, that there are some sharp angles and sharp edges and other hazards in that waterway, and all that really needs to be addressed in a very thoughtful manner. I also would like to dovetail on the conversation around College Creek and Robert Eads Park, and the fact that there's an intersection where it's city-owned and Board of Ed, and I serve on the Murray Moss Academy's advisory board. And again, just looking at where the city property starts and where the master planning for the Eads Park, and then you also have the Housing Authority that also shares a boundary with that area that's heavily used for intergenerational opportunity. What I'm a proponent of is how we can use, in my case, African-American history as well as science. And again, just trying to bring up a whole new generation of just showing how history and science can be married together. So that's one of the things that I'm an advocate for as well. But I'm glad to be a part of this roundtable discussion.
Glad that you have been able to join us. I've been capturing some of the notes in over the past 2 questions that we've had, as far as the partnerships you've been with Mary Mossy Oaks Academy Advisory Board, and then Blacks of the Chesapeake, being able to help out in the organizations and partnerships, and then just noting, let me see, Altonia, Cars Beach, and College Creek property as within our 3rd question, as potential areas of opportunities for investment. With this kind of being in the 3rd question round now, just wondering if anybody else had any opportunity sites or investments, that in your opinion that could be utilized within the city, as far as physical improvements or even just a program or such.
We could also, this
one more point before you pass the ball.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yes, and I saw that it was representatives from the Housing Authority, but again, I worked with the Housing Authority in the past. And again, just looking at ways to tighten up those relationships. I don't speak for the Housing Authority, but I think that they are key partners in a number of these city properties or Housing Authority properties that have an alignment with sensitive environmental areas and waterways as such. And just think that's another important group of stakeholders that we would like to continue our relationship with.
All right. All right. And I see that Eric, you was going to mention that we could probably combine also 3 and 4 together, if that's what you're kind of heading to.
well, yeah, sorry, I confused things a little bit, Anthony, because these are I didn't include the first question about the introduction. So this is actually question 4 here. We could probably move on to that unless, I mean, honestly, the discussion's kind of blending across these questions, but
yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I was just going to combine 3 and 4 as far as like just to continue it, because 3 just talks about any partnerships, ideas that you kind of see as being beneficial, and then what are also kind of some of the shortcomings and challenges. I know, Jessica, I have you noted, but I want to make sure that I recognize John.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Ellen, help me out here. Back in the early part of this century, the Tom and Kitty Foundation with their Sacred Place initiatives were very active in the city. As a matter of fact, they funded the restoration of 4th Street at Spa Creek. Ellen, I know they still have an office in Annapolis City Marina. Do you know if they're still doing their Sacred Places?
I do not believe that they are. I think that
They are.
have-
They are, and we're actually actively involved with, they are actively involved with the St. Anne Cemetery and doing a project there at the Route Boulevard Bridge.
We're good.
And we've also been in discussions about a project at Waterworks and a few other things. So yes, they're active.
Their office is
they're-
actually
but
now in
the
West
grant-
Annapolis, but
They're-
they were invited to this as well, I should say, but
Yeah, but their past program, their short-term grant program, I don't think they're continuing in the same way.
no. They also are working more nationally, so that's kind of stretching them a bit beyond, for sure. That Annapolis is just one of the places where they're looking these days, but yeah, I mean, they're a unique foundation here, that's for sure. And have a long history of doing, we have encountered their projects, in doing our site inventory. Several of the street end parks have special projects that they, I guess, funded and helped.
I think they changed, Ellen, and might be what you're thinking. I think they stopped kind of building projects. They only kind of participate in the design of them. And
That's
somebody
correct.
else has to build them.
Yeah. Yes, they also were great funders of the mural all the murals you see downtown. They were funded in part by the Kitty, by that foundation, which matched at one time every cent, every dollar that the city put into arts. They matched for 3 years. So all of that has changed as they, as they broadened their scope differently. But one of the really nifty things, of course, were the benches that they put in the street end parks with that had a journal under them, so that if people sat, and were just, they could record their feelings or their thoughts about what was going on at the time. And that was a nifty program that I hope we can find ways to continue.
Jessica. And then also I seen that Caitlin has jumped on and joined us.
It was a question really, in terms of the cities, when Eric showed the text, regarding public water access. And it specifically refers to businesses, but a lot of the public water access, for example, the street end parks at the end of Severn and Chesapeake don't border businesses, they border residences. So I think that that's something that needs to be revisited, because if you limit the wording of public water access to include only those that are next to businesses, then you're creating issues.
Yeah, point well taken. Yeah, for sure. It was added to the code in reference to, kind of zoning, land use kind of question. But I think there's we're actually in the midst of updating the adequate public facilities ordinance in the code, which addresses recreation. I think that might be a place to, have it. So when public investment happens is through the adequate public facilities requirements, that maybe that's, that people are aware of what we mean by public water access. That's a good point.
All right. And then Caitlin, did you want to introduce yourself? You had to kind of jump in.
Yeah, I'm actually with the Annapolis Maritime Museum as well. And originally I had my hand raised on the partnership idea because as a maritime museum, it's obviously in line with our mission to be interpreting, the history and the, any way that we connect with the water. So, I mean, as far as like just being a partner and participating in interpretation, signage, promoting that, there is public water access is obviously a big part of what, makes sense for us. So I just wanted to throw that out there as far as a partnership. So
I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you on. And then with question 4, we have one more question after this, ending around about 2:30. But what can the city do to help make these partnerships and ideas reality. And, you know, as far as your understanding of how the city works and working with the city, are there any shortcomings or challenges that you think that should be addressed or kind of eliminated in order to make the process a little bit easier? You know, this is free and candid as you want to be. So I'm here not to judge, but to actually make sure that we can get this to happen as well. I know leadership is always one good thing to have. So, but just to hear your opinions on it, you know.
Yes.
No.
Ellen says you really need to have a staff person. You need to the whole program, because it requires so much negotiation as well as grant sharing or fiscal sharing, needs to have a staff person that is you know, has skills in community organization, has skills in negotiation, has outreach type of skills that can in fact make so much of this happen. That's a special kind, and that's a special quality because you know, it's a new type of way of looking at a community. Most people in public that are public servants are, you know, their job is to preserve the status quo. It's not to be creative. It's not to negotiate, you know, in large measure. And so what you do need is somebody, an assigned person who heads this program.
All right. Bill, have you popped up?
Short of cloning Eric, who I think is doing a great job, we really, you know, we need to figure out how to, again, I think he's doing it, try to figure out how to leverage these, especially these federal resources. And it'd be great if, like, the Park Service put somebody in Eric's office to work with him, you know, on a full-time basis to really make this happen. And, you know, we have those kind of resources at the federal level. And, you know, I thank the leadership of the Volpe Center and the Park Service for getting engaged in this. But again, it's, you know, with Senator Van Hollen now focusing in on the Gateways project, this is just a golden opportunity to really bring to fruition this goal of increased water access, increased public access, increased support for the bay, for a sustainable bay. It's all tied together, increased tourism for the city, increased tax dollars for the city. But the city has limited resources, and again, if we could just clone Eric and figure out how to pay these additional staff folks, then we can really get stuff done.
Eric, you have some very good supporters over here. I like this, you know. So
yeah, no, I would just say every project needs a champion. I mean, that's definitely true.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say it on the side. You're like, Eddie, if you want to give us more money to keep working and keep them going, we can do that. But Tara and Michael, y'all have your hands raised?
Rebecca has had her hand up, but I think maybe because her camera's on, she might be getting missed, Anthony. I don't know.
I think my hand was just up from earlier.
Oh,
Somehow I've gone into safe driving mode. And I'm afraid if I hit leave, I'm going to leave the meeting, and you can all feel free to make fun of my technological ineptness.
That's all right. But yeah, so Sorrel?
Yeah, so I sort of gets at Alan's point, but if we could have more regular partner meetings, like identifying key partnerships that we can have with the city and have that more routinely, so that there's a more formalized strategy in engaging communities that aren't necessarily on the water in the city of Annapolis, but still trying to get access to them. Just so there's more of a regular discussion around that.
And then Michael.
Thanks. I was just going to mention one of the partners that I think that we're missing in all of this. I mean, it's been mentioned kind of here and there, but the county, Anne Arundel County, has a lot of very close water access points within what most of us consider the city of Annapolis. And a partnership with the county, I think, is probably the most important piece. Number one, because they have facilities year-round open where kids can learn how to swim and get in the water. They have multiple swimming beaches, which is something that we don't have. I really think that, you know, any kind of discussion going forward ought to at least include somebody from the county so that we can figure out where it is, what direction they're going in, and how we can align ourselves to make sure that the properties in the city are available to county residents and likewise in the county for city residents. So that's my piece.
Excellent point.
Like that. I have Francesca.
I'll just add
Yeah.
a caveat to that, which is a concern that we have had raised in the West Annapolis neighborhood. Our resources are pretty small, like the areas that access the water are pretty small and not necessarily, they can't necessarily support like the hundreds of thousands of residents in the county, while they could absolutely support the smaller group of residents in the city. So I just wanted to raise that, like, once you talk about opening up beyond the city, I think we might start to lose some support in our neighborhoods. And that is partially arising out of what happened during COVID when people were seeking out water access points. Some of the areas in our neighborhood were really kind of overwhelmed, and there was lots of trash left behind, and people, you know, just felt like there was more traffic than the area could support. And so I just want to make sure that that's noted, that, you know, while it's a great idea to consider those partnerships, there's probably some resources that we have that don't necessarily like support the entire population of the county.
Right.
That's good to know. Next, I have Francesca, John, and then Jessica.
In a bit of juxtaposition to that, I was going to say that so much of our water access in our area has been taken and kind of given and sold as private property. So I'd really love to see energy around restoring some of that. And so, like we've seen with Beverly Triton Park, Beverly Beach Park region recently, that's that neighborhood kind of had signs that said you can't come here, and that's been corrected. So I'd really love to see some of that, and just kind of more access in neighborhoods that, one, have sites that should be accessed and are public, and kind of not allowing neighborhoods to say you can't come here. And then also with private property owners, maybe incentivizing or finding ways to work with them to have some kind of like reason for them to provide that, kind of like the property that was mentioned on Chester Avenue. So, you know, I don't know what that would look like. Is it like a tax break or something, or is it a release of liability if anybody's injured there or something like that? But I would really love to see not just preserving what we have, but restoring what's been taken away.
I like that incentivization program. I know in some of the research that I've been doing, New York has done that with some of their residents, bought the property, put it into a land trust, and then just cleaned up some of the laws and as well. But John, Jessica, and then Michael.
Thanks. I'm gonna go back to a previous comment. I think it's important that the city seek outside resources, but for the 20 some years I was with the city, and now I still live in the city. Now, I've always heard the city doesn't have the resources to do this or do that. So, but my comment to that is that a municipal budget is a statement of priorities. If the city doesn't have the resources to really go after street and parks, and the city just hasn't prioritized it enough to go forward. So, you know, the city's got money to do whatever it puts as a priority, like repave streets, you know, things like that, fund the planning department, at least a little bit. But I think that, you know, but I think that the issue is the city has never had a priority with it. Now, I think with this whole effort, that may change. So, and I'm looking forward to that happening.
Good comment.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Jessica?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things when you're talking about what are the current shortcomings. I think it's important that the city revisit how decisions are made regarding public water access and what level of public comment is available. Right now, decisions regarding public water access seem to be basically made in an office by one or two people, and the public doesn't get the right to comment or have a say. And I don't think that that's appropriate, because we're talking about public water access. So the public should get to say whether, you know, whether the city is okay with should give away, you know, the land at the end of Chester Avenue, or anything else. It shouldn't be
Wells
made.
Cove, water access at Wells Cove.
Or that. And then, you know, I think one of the things sort of in between what Francesca and Rebecca were saying, you know, and it's sort of along what I was saying with Hawkins Cove as well, there's natural ways of limiting that, right? Of having water access open to everybody. But if you don't build a parking lot, right, then it's only accessible really to the people who are in the area. So,
Right.
you know, if you have, you know, because I hear that a lot, you know, like, oh, well, I don't want this water access to be known that it's public. And, you know, the area naturally limits it from, you know, you don't have tons of people driving down to the end of 4th Street and parking there to look at the water or to access the water, because you can only so many people can go there in a vehicle. Otherwise they have to go there on foot or, you know, whatever. And so I think there are natural limits. And
Right.
that's, you know, when we talk about Hawkins Cove, that's also one of the things, like, we don't need to build a giant parking lot, because then that, you know, that can really overwhelm and ruin the nature part of it. But, you know, if you improve it and it's still walkable, you know, then there's that, and people can walk there or ride the bikes there. And then that, you know, and we're talking about public water access, but then that also increases the whole benefit, you know, that the city's been talking about for a long time of making the city more walkable and bikeable and doing that and encouraging that. So I think that's really important. And I think, you know, liability, Maryland state law protects homeowners from public water access liability. So that shouldn't be used as an excuse to not allow public to water access.
Mhm. Appreciate it. Michael?
I just wanted to tack on to what Jess had said, because I think that's important, right? Somewhere in the process of you know, redeveloping a personal home or you know, a commercial property that's adjacent to water access, something in there is where the water access slips and it becomes restricted or altogether taken over by whatever entity is around that property. And I think maybe it lines up with what has to happen now at the port wardens, whereas they have to consider the public's access to the water as part of their approval process. And maybe the planning commission should have to consider the same for anybody who's looking at, you know, redeveloping property adjacent to a water access point. Maybe we formalize that discussion so that it has to happen as part of the review.
Right.
Like that point. If we don't have any other comments concerning question 4, I'll go ahead and move along to question 5, which is there are a lot of ways in which partnerships around water access can work, particularly. And we want to understand, do you know of any other successful partnerships and projects that concern water access throughout the city, county, state, region, or even across the nation that you may have heard of? And then, you know, if it's a good model, suggest it, how I'll be able to gain the resources, things to that nature. It could be with governments, public-private areas, nonprofit locations, you know. And so I'll open the conversation up to that question as well. Jessica, you still have your hand up from last time or not? All right.
Mike, is that you? Did you just put your hand?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I I don't know if this counts as successful partnerships, but we all travel. I think most of us travel to different places in the country where access to the water is, you go on a beach vacation and access to the water, or you go to the the Florida Keys or something like that. You're looking for ways to get out and at least look at the water or find a place where you can put your feet in the water. And there are places that do a really good job. The Outer Banks of North Carolina is one of them, and it's partnerships between the municipalities down there and the Park Service, who runs the National Seashore, to make the signage kind of universal across the entire spectrum of 60 some odd miles of continuous beach, to say this is where you can walk in right here. This is where you can park if you have access issues. This is where the nearest trash can is. This is where the nearest bathing station is. And they've kind of got it all mapped out, so that your first step onto the public water access, that you're allowed to be there, right? You're not questioning, ooh, is this a path that I can take and go down and see the water, or is this somebody's backyard? And I think that's going to be the really important, first piece, is some kind of partnership, so that we can, kind of standardize all this, so that people know when they're riding their bike down the street, they can stop and go and take a look at the water.
All right, I did raise my hand. I did, I don't know if this is necessarily considered a partnership, but where water access works, and along the same sort of lines what Mike was talking about. And we had this in an earlier discussion, and we haven't really talked about it this discussion, but water access obviously is not only just walking down the path, but it's what do you do when you get there? And one of the things that's really lacking in Annapolis is the place to put your boats, or to store your kayaks, or to, what happens when you get on the water. And if you go to, places in Cape Cod, like all around Cape Cod, if you go to Nantucket, if you go down to places along, other down in Florida, they have much larger anchorages. They have much larger mooring fields, and they take advantage of, flats. One of the areas that I think Eric and I have talked about, and I know Mike and I have talked about, is the area off of Horn Point, where we have public water access, and there's shallow water where, bigger boats can't anchor there, but smaller boats could. And you could have one of those places where, people could anchor their small boats, because that's one of the things. If you have a runabout, if you have, a little dory or something, unless you have a place to store it on your property, and therefore then a trailer and access to one of the 2 launch sites in Annapolis, you're out of luck, right? And that's the thing. And so, and as more and more water access has gone away, and as more and more water access, even, with some of the partnerships we have, that is blocked to continual access, it's a problem. And so I think we need to make sure that we're not missing out on that part of the access, right? Make sure that we have enough mooring balls, make sure we have enough anchor fields, not only for the large boats, not only for the, tourists that are coming in, and the Canadians and whatever else, but also for our own people who just want to have a place to put their, skiff to go out fishing in the evenings.
There were a couple of other sites. The end of 6th Street on Back Creek, you were able to tie up your boat and come up the ladder where you could pick up a bike for rent. I don't know whether, to use to get to the market or somewhere. I don't know whether you can do that anymore. The end of Prince George Street, of course, offers another place where you can, where you can hook up for a while. And one of the recommendations from the kayakers was that at the end of Prince George Street, there be a place where they could keep their boat, their craft, when they paddled into town, so that they could go into town, and go to a restaurant, get ice cream, or do whatever. Those things were part of the comp plan. Well, were offered as part of the comp plan for the, for the dock restoration. But there are other places, going back to Truxton Park, the non-use of Truxton Park, that really should not be a non-use, needs to really be fixed, because they are all potential sites where you can dock temporarily and have access to bike transportation to get to where you need to go to provision yourself for your boat.
We're really interested in exploring like a paddle share type program. That's something I had a chance to see. There's one in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. It's, Annapolis would be a far better place for it because, you can't really go upstream there. It's just one way down the Mississippi, and it's pretty dangerous if you're just a novice paddler. So that's something we're looking, and that if anybody comes across examples of that, that would be something we're interested.
Well, Truxton Park's a perfect site.
But
So,
not only for paddlers, but also for skiffs. If you're in Nantucket and you look off the beach there, there's 40 boats in the ocean in a place where in Annapolis we have like 3, right? We could fit more.
Bill and then Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say that I did talk to somebody with the city recently, and they apparently planning for a kayak dinghy dock is in the budget for this year at the end of 6th Street on Back Creek, and they're supposed to build it in 2024. So and that it also could be a kayak, there could be a kayak rack there, but also it could be used for a stand-up paddleboard business or something they could probably launch from there as well. But we've heard about it for a long time, and apparently it's really in the budget. So if everybody reminds the city that it's in the budget, hopefully it'll get built.
Michael.
I wanted to mention as a former resident of Watergate, now Nautilus Point, they actually run a program that's similar to a paddle share. I'm not sure if it's active. It was started by one of the residents because they have all along that shoreline, which they have quite a bit of. They have racks for paddlecraft and for small dinghies. They have a floating dock that's accessible for launching, and you paid a small membership fee, and then for that you got access to, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 different types of craft there that they had, and you could take them out so long as somebody else wasn't using them. It's a great spot. There's plenty of parking.
I'm wondering about that.
Access is good and it's protected.
Right.
I've seen their racks. There's a lot of boats there. I always wondered if they were.
Yeah, and some of them are abandoned. Like every couple of years they do an auction of the stuff that's been left behind and unregistered with the apartment complex. But I think, I was there in 2014, 2015 maybe, and there were maybe 40 or so members to this. They called it the Watergate Yacht Club or something like that. And they had boats that had been either donated by previous residents or had been left behind, and they got them at auction, and then you could take them out. You got a combo access to a dock box that had life jackets and paddles in it, and
okay.
So there's already one going in the city, so long as it's still going.
Okay, that's good information to know. Vincent, have you?
Vic. Vince.
Yes, I don't know if I'm on the right question, but just an idea for future conversation is how do we facilitate limited resource people gaining access to the waterways? And I don't know all of the answers to it, but just as I hear the flow, it just seems to be maybe another meeting, another day, and maybe we can explore how that happens in other places as well.
Yeah.
You can put it in the parking lot or wherever it's appropriate at, but I'd like to be part of that conversation in the future.
Yeah.
No, it is criminal that people that live in Annapolis and have never been on the water. It's something that we, should be the #1 priority,
Yeah.
I think that Eastport Elementary has done some great programs, working in partnership with with Eastport Yacht Club and Annapolis Maritime Museum and some other organizations to get kids out on the water. And I know our schools in this cluster are county schools. But I think that that's something that, you know, the rec department and the city, you know, nothing says the city can't support programming that's happening in the schools. And that's one of the things the Education Commission can help with and work with the rec board, the rec advisory board, and the city. And really, it would be great to see the city start some programs that gets kids in the water, on the water, you know, really experiencing it. The number of times that we have kids who, you know, maybe they've just moved to Eastport from a different part of the city, and they're in 5th grade, and their first time on a boat is the 5th grade EYC day. And, you know, we all, everybody in the city of Annapolis lives like basically less than a mile from some body of water, from some, you know, or a mile from some, you know, usable body of water. And we really should be focusing on making sure, you know, everyone gets out there. And that's not only for, it's also for workforce development. You know, you could have kids who, you know, could be the next great boat engineer and don't know it because they've never been on a boat, right? And there's a lot that we can do, you know, starting in elementary school and then moving up through the middle and high school levels. And so, you know, I know that on the Education Commission side, we would really support that and you know, work to find whatever kind of resources we could. But I'd love to hear more ideas about that part of public water access.
Hey, Jess, one of the cities, sister cities, Niterói in Brazil, had an absolutely really outstanding program for engaging young people and youth into the maritime industry. Whether what they're doing now, I don't know, but I know, you know, they were in a partnership with the city to help share what their program was so that we could take the good things from it too and improve our own. You might, you know, in your spare time, explore what Niterói is doing now. And if they still have a program that might fit into our educational program.
Awesome. Can you say the name of the city again?
Niterói. It's not too far from the capital of Brazil.
Okay.
Nitaroi, I believe is how it is spelled. And the city clerk can probably pull up the resolution between the two cities of it, you know, that we did, you know, 15 years or so ago.
All right. That's good. I want to also quickly before we do anything, we were scheduled for 2:30. We are at 2:32. I'm sure it's perfectly fine to keep going on just a little bit longer. Just want to, you know, be cognizant of everybody else's time. You know, if y'all are able to stay on, please do. Eric, would you like to continue for the next 5 minutes to kind of wrap things up?
We can do 5 minutes. Just like final comments, I guess, right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one to add real quick. Are we able to follow up with everybody that's participated in these focus groups?
Yeah, we have everybody's contact info.
Okay, because I mean, I'm loving the ideas that are being generated, and just so that everybody is aware, we are going to be entering into an annual grant cycle out of the MPS Chesapeake office to support some of these kinds of projects. So when we just closed on our first year's application process, but when we get the next one scheduled, I'd like to, you know, be able to schedule a briefing for this community so that you all are aware of the timeline, the scope, and make sure that for those of you that have the capacity, that you're able to contemplate a proposal for our annual grant program.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eddie. Then I had John and Bill kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, looking back at the Watergate discussion, I just want to point out that the Watergate is zoned residential and those slips are supposed to only be for residents of that community. Slips that they're renting out to outside people, if they are, because we have to pretend that they're not, actually isn't legal. So that brings up a point that maybe the city should look at its development regulations and see how those regulations could be changed to incentivize property owners to have public access or to do different things. I know that, you know, for moderately priced dwelling units, you provide a moderately priced unit, you get a couple extra on the other side. So there may be an opportunity there, especially since Watergate wants to redevelop.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bill.
I'm also involved in the EYC Foundation, where we try to get people to go into the maritime trades, expose them. We're doing an event at Jabins in the spring, and so again, to try to recruit high schoolers, others to move into the maritime trades, obviously is going to get them on the water. So that's something that we need to look at. But I think a metric that we really judge the success of all of our activities is how many moderate, low-income kids do we get on the water? How do we increase that number? And I think that's a metric we should come up with to chart whether or not our work is going to be successful.
I definitely do appreciate y'all being able to participate and provide, this massive amounts of knowledge and information to us so that we be able to capture it and implement it within the plan and help prioritize, investments and look for partnerships, as we complete out our sessions here. But, I'll turn it over to Eric, but thank you again for all of the information, and we'll be looking forward to producing a plan for y'all to be able to review and look at and go from there.
Yeah.
Eric, can I jump in really quick?
Yeah.
And ask one more thing. Thanks. So I just thought about the Annapolis Yacht Club and how they kind of redeveloped and expanded, and that kind of monopoly on waterfront property. That might be an area to explore in terms of getting kids access to the water, maybe a partnership with schools in the city, Title I schools, or something to kind of provide that ability for kids to learn how to sail, do sailing team, and that would just open up a world of opportunity and create a lot more equity across the city and better relationships. I think that could be a really good thing to force upon them.
Good luck with that.
I mean, it is, I feel like this public water access plan is coming at a time where, I feel like I wonder if this was in place, if we would have done something different there, but we just haven't really had a good master plan for how to take control of the water for the public, so yeah, it's kind of odd that that's some very prominent waterfront right there. But Vince or Rebecca, you still have your hands up. I don't know if you had anything else to say, or just maybe you didn't put the hand down, but.
Yeah, I think Rebecca was having some
Okay.
tech troubles. Please share this Jamboard if possible. I think.
Yeah, we can do that. Definitely. And, I meant to also share, we have a website for this project it's on the City of Annapolis website. Sorry, I don't know why it's taking a while to load, but really, if you just Google Annapolis Public Water Access Plan, I think it's the first thing that comes up, but it's within our planning and zoning department, comprehensive planning, and it's being done as part of our 2040 comprehensive plan. So that's where you'll find it. We have posted links to the past focus groups here. We have a link to the needs assessment report that Volpe helped us with last summer. Our community survey is still up, but really we got about 500 responses, and I think we're at a point in the process now where we're really just trying to write the plan, and we're working on a mobile app that or a web app that will be a public tool for making the existing water access locations more navigable for people, both residents and visitors. So I'm excited about that. That there's going to be a chance to review what we're putting together. So just stay tuned. We'll get some word out when we have draft stuff to look at, and have a way for people to chime in we may do a public event. And that's something we've talked about, just to kind of do a physical in person. Sounds like a novel idea, you know, at Pit Moyer or somewhere that, you know, is accessible to people, to see what we've been working on. And, you know, I'm kind of excited just to kind of get this project in and be able to implement. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that are sort of already going on right now, but I think this plan is going to give us a lot more. So that's basically where we are. We, again, really appreciate everybody participating today. You know, it's daytime and have other things going on, but it was not in vain. It's big help to this process. So thanks again, and be in touch if you have any other thoughts after today. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that you were in, so you can keep going with the meeting.